Hey, we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. And it's another year, so you know what that means. Another WWE 2K game. This time with a big focus on the Bloodline. There are big and small changes kind of all over the place this year, but the biggest addition has to be the island. Now, there are a few other noteworthy changes and additions that we'll get into, but that's really the big one. The Island of Relevancy, which is such a WWE name, is really the marquee new feature for the game. It's this online shared world space where you create a custom character, you fight other players, and you advance through a pretty bare bones story, even from one of these games, and then purchase overpriced create a character costume parts from various branded stores. Look, if you've ever experienced the hellscape that is the city from NBA 2K, then you know what to expect here. It's that, but kind of with slightly less effort, which has the effect of actually making it a little bit more tolerable. If you liked World Tour mode from Street Fighter 6, it's like that, only kind of technically worse in a lot of ways. I'll get way more in depth with the island later because there is a lot to talk about, but let's run down all the other changes this year first, because honestly, it ain't a lot. That might not be the worst thing because, you know, after quite a few years of growing pains with this newer generation of WWE games, they finally really had it figured out in the last couple of years, gameplay-wise. It's really just the feature sets that varied, but let's just go in. Probably the other biggest new thing here is that they finally just have full unrestricted intergender wrestling. You can play as whoever you want now, and the game doesn't stop you or restrict your character choices in any way. You can change match types and make them only allow one thing or another, but otherwise, they're finally just letting you play whatever in whatever match type, which is probably mostly because of the custom character focus, the island thing I mentioned, but ultimately it just opens up the roster. Even if it was a matter of them just like flipping a switch and allowing this to happen, it's still cool. It's a very positive change. Another big one is the new third-person camera, which we were skeptical about at first, but it actually won us over. You could still use the traditional camera setup if you want, but the new camera system gives you more direct control over like what you're seeing and makes the in-ring action look a little bit more dynamic. It's a weird thing because it's just a different camera, and they messed around with things last year, but here it really does change the feel of how you play the game. It makes everything you do come off as more immediate and visceral compared to the old zoomed out ring camera that's kind of been the default for a long time now. At the end of the day, it's just a new camera option. It's a minor addition, but somehow it feels like a big deal just because it's something legitimately new feeling for the series. And it's pretty intuitive to use. You just control the camera with the right stick, and if you need to use the right stick for anything else, like performing a pin or to position, then all you have to do is hold R2 as a modifier, which is something that you were already doing for other actions, so I guess it's pretty easy to get the hang of. Believe it or not, those are the two biggest updates. Everything else is kind of like NBA 2K yearly update type stuff, just with a few minor tweaks here and there. Okay, I mean, the return of chain wrestling is kind of a big deal because it's a cool little system. It's basically just another mini game, but it's easy to wrap your head around, and it makes sense in the context of a wrestling match. If you're playing as a guy with the chain wrestling buff, and then the first grapple of a match is always a chain, which basically boils down to being a super simplified version of the UFC's kind of hold system, and we've enjoyed it so far. It's easy enough to understand, and it's a decent approximation of what you actually see in a match, so we're happy to see it back. They don't go super overboard with it, so like you're not using this new feature constantly. It only ever pops up when it needs to, kind of rare, and doesn't last too long, so it doesn't slow down the matches too much. So overall, we're fine with it. Most of the other updates are kind of minigame centric, like they put in a new alternate submission minigame for players who don't like to mash buttons or, you know, use that stuff. They changed around the ladder match minigame to make them a little more dramatic, which is cool, but I guess they still haven't really kind of fixed that issue where the AI just drags on ladder matches way too long. That's still an issue, and it makes what should be one of the most fun match types into something that feels a little tedious. It goes on too long. Just stop knocking down the ladder, guys. Just let me climb up and I want to kill you. I want this match to end, okay? The ladder match situation has kind of been a problem for a couple of years now, so it's not only a 2K25 issue, but it's definitely a personal gripe of ours. And it's another example of how the game doesn't innovate or change up too much. Most of the gameplay changes, while overall positive, feel not super deep, mostly superficial. They're just piling stuff on top of what was already there. Thankfully, what's already there, at the very least, works pretty good. Like, perfect example, being able to climb and perform moves off the barricade. It's something that's been a long time coming, and it does look cool, but it doesn't fundamentally change the gameplay in like massively meaningful ways. The thing is, like I said, that core gameplay, and by that I mean the actual wrestling, is solid. It's mostly unchanged from last year, maybe a little slower with the matches taking noticeably a little bit longer than before, but it's overall still pretty quick with standard matches. You know, usually once you get the hang of things and once you understand how to play, really only lasts in a couple of minutes at a time. As someone who's grown accustomed to the series' quirks, it all works well. It is mostly bug-free, and most importantly, it is fun. But by bug-free, we mean like visually. The game still has bugs, unfortunately, like random crashing that happened when we tested the game on PC and on a base PS5. Just completely random crashing, including one time where it crashed while we were just leaving the game idling. That is a big problem, and that needs to be addressed ASAP. Hopefully they can patch that, update that, fix that quickly. Now, as far as the actual gameplay goes, it's easy to just jump in and play a few matches and have a good time. Sure, the controls are still kind of fiddly with a million different little actions spread out over the entire controller, and it's a little bit more sim than just like fun arcadey style, and you know, some older wrestling fans just might not like that. But at this point, I don't think they're going to change what works. They've spent a lot of games just trying to streamline and figure out and get these things really right, that I don't expect them to start fresh for the series. This game is not a fresh start for the series, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the games are actually still finally in a decent place. So with 2K25 specifically here, it really just boils down to what else it has to offer. How did the new modes stack up? Other than the island, there's the usual grab bag of modes. There's My Faction mode, you know, the card-based mode, that's the microtransaction hellscape. That's relatively unchanged from the past years. It's the same old card packs and, you know, the expensive card exchanges that cost real world money. It's just really not for us. We bounce off of this stuff. We don't really have the energy to complain anymore. Then we also have MyRise, of course, the story mode. It's back and it's just as goofy as it's ever been. They've mostly given up on trying to ape like the cinematic stories of fighting games and have really devolved into mostly text-based dialogue boxes and canned animations. But in this case, that's actually a good thing. The story here is dumb. Like, it's really just like a lot of corporate hype. And once again, they make your character kind of like this up-and-comer fanboy chump, which I always think is really funny. The actual meat of the story mode is pretty funny, at least. It feels very old-fashioned like a story mode, where there are branching paths and some twists. You know, if they have to insert story modes into these games, then that's probably the way to do it. You know a mode is good when it's apparently got both like 100 rated Super Cena, who's partially invisible, and a literal demon to face off against. That's the good kind of goofy nonsense that we want to see in these types of things. My Universe mode returns, of course. It's mostly the same, but they finally brought back the multiple choice promos from the old games, which is a positive. The mode seems more reactive and interesting with some of the choose your own adventure stuff back. It's another minor change, but a good one. The MyShowcase this year covers the Bloodline, which, like I said, could have been a drag, but Paul Heyman is here to add some very much needed life to the usual MyShowcase presentation. And I mean, actually, as kind of a plus, Paul Heyman is all over WWE 2K25. I think to the game's benefit. He's one of the few guys able to make pretty much anything sound cool, sound good, no matter how stiff and awkward the actual writing is. The content really is the same old here. It's a series of historical wrestling matches with the same old issues that always plagues this mode. The same extremely specific objectives that can be annoying as hell to try and complete in a match. The same history stuff, the same slick but empty talking head segments. It's a MyShowcase mode. What else am I going to say? Personally, I've really liked them in the past. I do think they are a fun little option of a thing to play through. This one didn't really grab me the most, but I still just really appreciate that they do these. This one just won't surprise you too much in terms of like presentation and what it throws at you. All that leaves is the island, and for being the big name selling point for the game, you know, especially like it being in the advertising and they did all this promotion stuff for it, it's surprisingly rough. I don't know. I don't want to use half-assed, but maybe. What's crazy is that you can't even play it on PC. Yes, it's 2025 and there are still games coming out that don't have parity between the console and PC versions. And these games usually do find a significant audience on PC, so it does feel like a miss. Now, when you start off on the island, the impressions aren't good. After the pretty laughable opening FMV explaining what this place is supposed to be, you get dumped into the center of the island, you'll walk up to Paul Heyman and get introduced to how this mode mostly presents its story through this weirdly cheap-looking character cutout and dialogue box thing. The sort of thing you'd see only in like a anime RPG or like a visual novel game. Games where those make sense, where those feel right. And even still, a lot of those JRPGs or visual novels are just more dynamic visually than this is. It's just like, what's with this weird flat background? What, they couldn't spring for transparency effects here? What the island really ends up being is kind of like Poverty the City, which is both a bad thing and a good thing because it's not trying so hard to sell you on microtransactions. Make no mistake, they're still a central part of the entire mode because just like in NBA 2K, progress in this mode is 100% really pay to win. You use real money currency to upgrade your character's stats. There's a big focus on player versus player action in this mode. So what they're doing here, at least to us, seems pretty obvious. They're selling power to people who really want to easily win matches, and it's pretty shameless. There's no reason why everyone can't just be on the same level here. The only reason they're not is because 2K wants to sell microtransactions. That's really it. Like, so right from the start, you can make a 100 rated wrestler, but it ain't cheap. Your starting rank is 76, and to get to 100, you need to spend 161,000 VC, the game's in-game currency. How much does that actually cost in real world money? $49.99, 50 US dollars. That is the price of a 187,500 VC pack. Now, you can earn VC in the game, but as you'd expect, the amount you get is really small, like pathetically small, only 120 per match, which isn't even anywhere close enough to buy a pair of shoes in the game's store. Now, just like the city, there are stores to buy cosmetics here, and they're somehow even more worthless here. Just one pair of Jordans, which it's very cool that Jordans are in the game, that appeals to me personally, but one pair costs 18,000 VC, which is 3,000 more than the lowest cash pack. Just a pair of shoes in this game costs more than $5. The microtransactions in this place are out of control. And the story mode, we did not like it. It's very terminally corny, even compared to the writing in the rest of the game. One of the first things you do is, make video game sci-fi armor. What is happening? Why are we doing this? I don't know. Like I said, some corniness, some craziness is welcome in the other modes, but here, I guess just surrounded with everything else, it does not hit. Now, if there's one thing that's still a highlight of these games, really, it's the custom content. Probably the best thing about these games is just scrolling through the community creations to see what insane thing has been made. And for us, that's really the true highlight of these games. So it kind of sucks how 2K kind of makes sharing community creations a pain. There's no sharing between the PC and console community, so the PC creations are a lot more limited compared to the console equivalent. There's just more people making stuff for consoles. That's the reality. That's where I guess the primary audience is, and it sucks because like clockwork, 2K shuts down the entire online on these games, and that includes the community stuff. Hey, at the very least, they finally included some AI options to the creator wrestler. You can now change a move's priority, how often they'll use it, and the timing of certain moves. So 2K finally threw a bone to the people who want to play these games to really actually simulate these matches. I don't know how effective any of these AI changes are, or if they actually make it so the AI wrestlers actually behave closer to their real world counterparts. We can't totally tell, but the inclusion of these options is still definitely appreciated. So look, we spent some time complaining, okay, like WWE 2K25 is not bad, but the actual improvements are just minor. And the one really significant new addition is something that we just didn't really like at all. It did not land with us. The actual wrestling is still fun, the content offering is good, and while I admit they aren't reinventing the wheel with stuff like this, the match change-ups, the third-person camera and stuff, they are improvements, and depending on what you're looking for in these games, it might be enough for you. It's ultimately a solid wrestling game with a couple of crappy bits to it, but it's a solid year. All the microtransaction and stuff like that, like the game content-wise is so big that you can pretty easily ignore a lot of that stuff if you want, but it's still in the game, but we have to acknowledge it is part of the overall package, so it's gonna come down to you and your preferences. But hey, that's a before you buy. You know how this works by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now we want to hear yours down in the comments. Big shout out to Eric behind the scenes for helping writing this video with us. You are the man, but for you guys watching, let us know in the comments what you think about these games. We'd love to know your expectations, your thoughts of this one going into it, anything at all. And if this video helped you out, informed your purchase, anything like that, clicking the like button helps us out. We really appreciate it. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
And Raquel Rodriguez with an epic Tejana bomb. Fighting to stave off elimination, has to stay in the ring.
Ray Dudley has been eliminated.
Boom, what a clothesline. Oh, this may